Wrestling fans, are you ready? For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, let's get ready to rumble!
And now, please welcome at this time your hosts, Graham GSM Matthews and RJ Marceau. You're listening to the next era of wrestling radio. This is WrestleRant Radio.
Big thanks to Will from Pro Voice Guy Studios for that awesome new intro for WrestleRant Radio. It's been a long time coming, but we got a fresh coat of paint on the show. Season premiere last week, as we're calling it, like WWE called their season premiere of SmackDown last week and their season premiere of Raw on Monday night. We got the season premiere of WrestleRant Radio last week and this week. We're extending it out like it's Halloween Havoc across 2 different weeks here on WrestleRant Radio. But in all seriousness, October 19th, 2023 here today. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Mr. Marceau joining me momentarily. Before Mr. Marceau joins me for a conversation about Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite, and everything else in between, we're talking to Konnan here today, a wrestling legend, talking all about Impact's upcoming event coming up this weekend in Chicago on Sunday. Bound for Glory is on Saturday, but in that same venue in Chicago on Sunday, they're having their Bound for Glory Fallout show. It's a Lucha Libre Celebration event hosted by Konnan. They have Juventud Guerrera on the show, Black Taurus, Laredo Kid, and a bunch of other great luchadors, Samuray del Sol, the former Kalisto from WWE, and so many more. It sounds like a very exciting event coming up this weekend. Konnan's on the show here today, talking all about it. It was a wild interview when we talked the other day. We went all over the place talking about show recommendations, Impact's doctor/PR guy. He talks about Ross in the beginning of the interview. He jokes about him. A lot of stuff in between, just shooting on the entire world of wrestling in a great way. Konnan has a great mind for the business, needless to say, and he had a lot of cool stuff to say about Impact, Lucha Libre, why we're not seeing more of it, or Lucha Libre not getting the credit it deserves sometimes, some unsung heroes in the business, stuff like that. Just an all-over-the-place interview. It was a great time chatting with him on Tuesday night. The video of the interview should be up at some point in the next couple days before the event coming up on Sunday. So without further ado, enjoy my exclusive interview with wrestling legend Konnan. Graham GSM Matthews here with Fansided. Today we're talking the Impact Lucha Libre Celebration coming up this weekend as part of Bound for Glory weekend. Bound for Glory Fallout coming up on Sunday, this coming Sunday in Chicago. Konnan, you're a big part of it. I'm looking forward to your involvement in this event. How you doing, man? Thanks for taking the time.
Good, man. Easy like Sunday morning. Boom.
Talk about your involvement in this event. There's going to be a lot of Lucha Libre competitors from Impacts, past, present, and future, a part of this event. You're kind of like the guest of honor as part of this thing. I assume you're excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's always good to come home. Some of my best work I did with LAX, both iterations, Hernandez and Homicide, and then later Santana and Ortiz. I've always had a good time and considered it my home. We haven't gone over creatively what I'm going to do yet. Probably I'll find out when I get there. I know they have like this Lucha Fest Sunday at 5 p.m. at Cicero Stadium with me, Laredo Kid, Taurus, Juventud Guerrera, Samuray del Sol, and we're going to be up there chopping it up with the fans, socializing, but I don't know creatively what I'm going to be doing yet. Yeah.
I mean, that's a hell of a lot of notable names to be a part of this thing, in addition to yourself. That's coming off the heels of Bound for Glory on Saturday. I feel like there's no better time to have an event like this to honor Lucha Libre than over Impact Wrestling's biggest weekend of the year, right?
Yeah. And is it Hispanic Heritage Month still or no?
I think it's September 15th to October 15th. So I think it just ended officially a couple days ago.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep the party going in Cicero.
Yeah.
And I would like to say something for those. Do you watch Impact?
I do, of course, every week.
Okay. I would seriously investigate, and this is to Scott Tuggles D'Amore, head of Impact, right? Mm-hmm. And his boss, I think his name is Ed something Helms. Okay. I would seriously investigate the validity of a one Dr. Ross Foreman. He's going under the guise of a doctor, and I know that he's got some certificates. He said he graduated from said college, but I'd check that. I'd check that very closely. What is your name?
My name's Graham.
Graham. I would check. I would look into that if I were you. Do your due diligence, your journalistic. Yeah, because I don't think he's a doctor whatsoever. If he is, he's not a good one at all. But
Listen,
they do have, huh?
No. Go ahead. I was going to say something else.
Well, I just wanted to bury Ross. And so there's some good matches. There's some really good matches here. Josh Alexander versus Alex Shelley for the world title. Josh used to be the champion. Now it's Alex.
Yeah.
Overdue because he's been such a great wrestler. Mickey James versus Trinity is going to be good. Chris Sabin versus Kenta for the X Division. This one's I really want to see this one. Ospreay versus Mike Bailey. That's going to be off the hinge. ABC versus Rat. It's a good show. It's a good show. Bound for Glory. I think it's sold out.
Yep.
So, you can watch that probably on Fight TV. Is that the right place or no?
I think so. You're plugging it all over the place. Going in. Right. Yeah, well, that's the place to watch it. No, it's looking like a great show on Sunday, and I feel like with some of the matches that you mentioned, specifically Will Ospreay and Mike Bailey, ABC and the Rascals, I feel like it's so fitting that the event is on Sunday, or Bound for Glory is on Saturday, but the Lucha Libre event's on Sunday, because I feel like they kind of go hand in hand with the way that Lucha Libre has kind of inspired the style, obviously of just wrestling today, but specifically in Impact with the matches such as those. I assume you see the similarities there as well, and how Lucha Libre has kind of paved the way for what we're seeing today all across wrestling, but specifically with a show like Bound for Glory coming up on Saturday.
Well, it's just funny because in 96, 97, which is kind of the era that I wrestled in and brought in all the Mexican talent, they were being made fun of. Nobody knew the style. The commentators would talk about other matches. And now it's incredible to see that, 25 plus years later, wrestling's more lucha-centric than ever.
Mm-hmm.
You see a lot of stuff from Lucha. A lot of it is badly done, by the way. But you see a lot of stuff that you got from Lucha Libre, and everybody has luchadors on their roster. Every promotion in the world has a lucha match. I'm very proud of that because when we came in, there was no lucha. Nobody was doing lucha on TV, And now look, it's really revolutionized the sport in a lot of ways.
When you mention how there's a lot of people or some people that are doing it poorly, or who are some people that you think are doing it great and representing Lucha Libre wrestling so well nowadays in Impact and just in general?
Well, we would have to talk about non-Mexicans because all Mexicans do it well.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
Bro, they've actually really, to me, clipped his wings, but Ricochet.
Mm-hmm.
He's really, really talented, can do a lot of cool lucha shit. For some reason, they told him to tone it down. Somebody that works there said they were going to start to let him go again. I hope they do because he's incredible. The Young Bucks, they were actually trained in Lucha Libre. And it's kind of funny because I didn't know this till way later when it happened. A kid that I consider my protege called Ron... I'll remember his name, but he actually helped train the Young Bucks,
Oh, wow.
And so he used to come to the shows that I used to run in Tijuana and kind of soak up game and then come back to LA and do his own version of that. And he trained them. So the Young Bucks, another one that they do lucha very well too. Those are two that come to the top of my head.
There's so many people that kind of embody that style now, obviously outside of, the usual Mexican wrestlers and whatnot across all these companies and an Impact as well. Was there for you, Konnan, as far as a turning point where you saw a lot more influence with Lucha Libre? I mean, again, through the 90s and the 2000s, was there any one point that you would pinpoint saying, yeah, I think this is when it really kind of crossed over, not in the main, I mean, it's obviously always influenced wrestling, but into the US wrestling scene. And it was all right, this was the point where it really kind of broke through, if that makes sense.
No, it's just been a gradual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Ray with his great matches, Eddie with his great charisma and his great matches, just kids growing up and going, okay, I don't have to be 6'5" and weigh 300 pounds anymore. I can be 5'5". I can start very young, the Mexican wrestlers did. And you see a lot of American wrestlers nowadays. So they kind of broke the blueprint and they kind of, I think younger guys, they didn't want to be doing the Hogan leg drop or the bear hug or some bullshit boring move from the 70s and 80s. They were like, bro, I want to flip and I want to fly. I want to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think they really revolutionized the game. Yeah.
But I was just saying, as far as, who you mentioned, Juventud, Guerrera, Samuray, Del Sol, Tarus, and so many other names as part of Impact right now that are going to be part of this event coming up on Sunday. Does it ever cease to amaze you what some of these luchadors are capable of? I mean, even some stuff that we see today is just mind-blowing. You would think by now, especially with you having been in the business for as long as you have been, that you would think you've seen it all. But there's still stuff from week to week in all these companies, in Impact and your own promotions and elsewhere in Mexico, that it's just like, wow, I can't believe that I'm still seeing the evolution of wrestling, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah, because that happens in everything. Like, I remember when I first started to see like skateboarding or the X Games, 20 years ago, and now look what they're doing now. You're always trying to up the ante. And you look at basketball, like I remember when I was a kid, the center in basketball was always around the rim and he could only do like layups or a dunk. That was it. Now you've got the centers shooting 3-pointers, and they can dribble like a guard. So you're always going to see the evolution of athleticism in any sport because that's the nature of the game. You're trying to evolve and do better and outdo the other guy, right? So it never surprises me in wrestling. There's always going to be somebody that's going to come along and be better than you, and there's going to be somebody that's going to take the, push the envelope. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, speaking of surprises, as far as Juventud Guerrera being a part of this show, I mean, this is his first, coming back to TNA Impact for the first time since 2005, which is crazy. And he's still doing it at a high level. Again, kind of an obvious answer, but I would assume for you specifically, him being back as part of this event, not only very cool, but does it surprise you to still see him killing it at this stage of his career at the level that he is? Or again, is it more of just expected at this point?
No, because, he's always stayed in shape and he's one of the greatest wrestlers ever, bro, because, Rey Mysterio, who definitely deserves a lot of the credit for revolutionizing wrestling, it wasn't just him. To me, it was him, Juventud, and Psychosis. Those were the three that revolutionized the game. There's a before them and an after them. And one thing's to be good, one thing's to be great, one thing's to be a superstar, and another thing's to revolutionize a sport. That's a whole different level, my friend. So... I give him props. Me and Juve, we've had our ups and downs. He's always been like the rebellious little brother. But right now we're really cool. There was a point where we weren't even talking. But it's good to see him. He stays in shape. He's still charismatic. He's still out there doing his thing, just like Rey is,
I feel like Guerrera is one of those guys that doesn't get enough credit. As much, I mean, for all the credit that he does get, he deserves more credit. Just Lucha Libre in general for, inspiring the style.
He does, but the problem with him is that he's gotten so much heat over the years for shit he's done that hurts you, where people don't want to give you your flowers if you've, been involved in a lot of it's like me.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'm very outspoken and a lot of people don't like me because I'm outspoken, but that's it's not a gimmick. That's who I am.
Yeah. And then that's still who you are to this day, right?
Right. And since they don't like me, they don't want to give me my flowers. But bro, I'm at a point in my life where I don't fucking need flowers from anybody. Sure. They're always calling me and they're always telling me, oh, Konnan, can we come down here and give you a Legends Award? Or can we come down here and give you this award or that award? And it's like, okay, I don't need to travel like 3 hours on a plane and sleep in a hotel and not at my house to hear people put me over for 30 minutes. Like, maybe when I was younger, I needed that, but I don't need it now, So I don't care who gives me or who doesn't give me my flowers. I'm employed. I'm doing what I love. I give results, or if not, I wouldn't be here. And this is what I like to do,
Yeah. Now you mentioned, listen, Konnan, you're a legend. You're at a point in your career, like you said, where you don't have to go out and do this sort of stuff. So I think it speaks volumes that you're going to be a part of this event with Impact because we don't see you do this sort of stuff often. So I think it makes this appearance coming up this weekend that much more special.
Yeah, and I do that on purpose because that way I don't oversaturate myself. You're like, enough already with this guy, uncle. We get it. You like to be on TV, So my whole thing is, if it doesn't creatively stimulate me or it isn't for a friend, there's a good chance I'm not going to do it.
No, that makes sense. And another guy going to be a part of the show, Samurai Del Sol, you mentioned earlier. Just talk about him from what you've seen of his work, and now he's doing his thing in Impact, and he's just another fantastic performer that doesn't often get his flowers as often as he should because he's quite good. How exposed have you been to his work?
Very exposed. He used to work in AAA. I had given him the gimmick of Octagon Jr., and I think his dream was always to be in WWE. So he didn't take the gimmick. I think he did a couple. He did a couple vignettes and a couple matches, and then immediately he went to Ring of Honor because, Gabe Spokowski, the guy that was running Ring of Honor at that time, had a connection with WWE through Evolve. So his thing was stay with me and I'll get you into WWE, which obviously he did. But Samurai Del Sol was never really forthright with me on that, but that's cool. He very good talent. I think the problem with him was 1,000% creative. They put him in the wackiest, corniest, bro. You're a grown man coming to the ring with piñatas. Okay, dude. Piñatas is like for kids. It's something it's a thing that kids hit with sticks. Like 2 to 5 year olds. So that was. Some white guy probably wrote that thinking it was cool. They probably didn't want to make any waves and said, at least we're on TV, and didn't say anything. But those storylines, that type of shit, the way they were booked did him no favors. And perception is everything. If you're booked like a star, you're going to get treated like a star. If you get booked like a J-Bro, you're going to look like as a J-Bro by the fans. And I think that him, Lince Dorado, who was the other guy? Metallic?
Yeah.
Yeah. They were looked at as fucking straight J-Brons.
And they're just all fantastic.
I'm not hating. I'm just stating. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, listen. I mean, they're all great talents. They've obviously all landed on their feet and have all had stints in Impact at one point or another in the last couple of months. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like it's still surprising that we see that sort of stuff in wrestling nowadays, like that representation as far as like the piñata.
I'll tell you why. It's very easy, bro. It's very easy. Because you have no Mexican, no Latino, no African Americans in any positions of power. They're not producers. Tell me an African American, Latino producer you've heard of, or a writer.
No.
There it is.
Yeah, just that representation, and I think that's the important thing.
Bro, you can't have one or two Latino writers on your staff. You can't have one or two African American writers on your staff. You can't have one or two female writers on your staff. Even though at the end of the day, because I explained this to a guy that did a show with me that's pretty well known, very well known, and he was like, "Whoa, I don't know how to write for Mexicans," because it was a Lucha Libre show, and I was like, don't think about writing for Mexicans. Just think about writing for a human being, because what we're doing here is we're manipulating emotions. Emotions, every African American, every Latino, everybody's been sad, mad, fucked over, jealous, greedy. We can all identify with those traits. So it doesn't matter what nationality it is. But there are cultural things that only an African American or Latino or an Asian or whatever it is going to be able to say, hey, do this, because our fan base will understand it and they're going to like it. That's why you need to have that type of, I remember one time, this was actually hilarious. Do you remember, I know you didn't see it live, but have you ever seen on tape the Dean Martin roast?
No, I haven't seen that.
Okay, but you know what a roast is, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Right. So Dean Martin was kind of like the first ones that started on TV. He was like, do you know who Dean Martin was or no?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's like this cool guy that was always drunk on TV, like kind of a ladies' man. And so he would have these roasts, but they were really like, you can imagine all the shit you could get away with in the 70s that you can't get away now, right?
For sure.
Right. So there was a comedian there. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Have you ever heard of Red Fox?
No, I have not.
Have you ever seen the show Sanford and Son?
I've heard of it, haven't seen it.
Okay. When you get a chance, watch one show and tweet me. I'm on X, Twitter, whatever, at Konnan 5150, and tell me if you liked it. Red Fox was hilarious. Okay. What a great name, Red Fox. So he did a Dean Martin roast, and he went up there and he bombed. And he goes, I told you I should have written my own material and not leave it up to a white guy. So at the end of the day, can you imagine like a white guy trying to write shit for Dave Chappelle?
Yeah, that'd be terrible.
You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Even though we have more inclusion in wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
where it really counts backstage, there's not really much.
No, it's a great message to send. I think, every company can learn from that for sure. And I think, to tie it back into this event, I think stuff like this helps, with the representation and honoring it and stuff like that, having more voices and positions that matter, like you said, in important positions of power. And as we wind down here, Konnan, just talking about, everyone a part of this event coming up, with the Lucha Libre celebration, just talking about the advice, like the talent of today in Lucha Libre. What advice do you have for them? And when they come to you for advice, because obviously you're a legend, Konnan, what advice can you bestow upon them?
I always tell them the same thing, and hardly nobody ever listens. Learn English. Most of them don't. And that holds them back, because you can't really do autograph signings. You can't do vignettes.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody come in and talk for you. So that's my main thing. Learn English, and learn the style, because obviously there's a different psychology and a different style between Mexican and American. But I think it's easier for a Mexican to learn the American style than it is for an American to learn the Mexican style.
Has there been anyone that's taken that advice from the current crop of wrestlers that's taken that to the next level?
The only guy, and he isn't really on TV yet, and he should be, is Daga.
Daga's great.
Yeah.
He's another one to keep an eye out for. So now a lot of great talent.
He just had a tryout in AEW. But he's really good. He speaks English really well. And I love him, because I always tell the heels, because the heels always do things that kind of pop the crowd.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let me see if I got this right. I'm in the crowd. I'm seeing you do something cool, and I'm seeing him do something cool. Who am I supposed to boo?
Mm-hmm.
And you're making the match that much harder for the babyface. Let him do all the babyface shit. When you're a babyface, you can do the babyface shit. But you're dividing the crowd. You're having some of them applaud for you, some of them applaud for them. It's way easier. Majority like him. There's always going to be some people that are contrarian, but the best heat is when the majority's with him and the majority hates you. And so Daga's a real heel. Like I always tell him, from the minute you get in the parking lot, don't sign autographs. Get your heat. If you want to after the show, do it, but don't do it before the show. Get your heat. People go, what a dick. Get your fucking heat,
Yeah.
Don't, if somebody has a sign that says Daga, you're number one, don't go over there and pose by the fucking sign. Rip it up.
Yeah.
Get your fucking heat. People are going to understand you're doing a part. They're going to like you. I know you're trying to sell t-shirts like everybody else is, but if you commit to your character, people will buy your t-shirt as a heel because you know how to be a heel.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to get that past the young generation, because everybody wants to be liked and everybody wants to be loved, and nobody can talk bad about you. You're going to melt, or they're not your friend. It's just a different generation, and I'm not the old man at clouds. It is what it is.
It's the lost art of wrestling, and I hope we can see more of it, in the future, because there are certain people that get it, that do exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's very far.
Look at MJF.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's the king of it, but hopefully more people can do it going forward, because that's like the lost art of wrestling. It's wise words, Konnan, which is why I'm looking forward to seeing you part of this event coming up this weekend. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it, but hopefully at some point down the road, I'll be able to catch up with you. But like you said, people can find you on Twitter at Konnan5150. I'll definitely check out Red Fox and what was the name of the show you mentioned?
Sanford and Son.
Sanford and Son. Okay.
Hilarious.
I've heard of it, I haven't seen it.
Yeah. And then if you want to check me out on my podcast, where we do everything from wrestling to sports to pop culture to politics, it's called Keeping It 100 with Konnan, and it's on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, YouTube, everything. Boom.
You've been doing it. You've been in the game for a long time, Konnan. People got to check out your stuff and hear your wise words for all the wrestlers out there and fans as well. So looking forward to it, Konnan. Thanks so much for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, my friend. Have a good one.
Thanks, Konnan.
All right.
Big thanks to Konnan for the time. He was certainly an interesting chat. Check out our video going up on YouTube soon over at youtube.com/WrestleRant. And like we said during the interview many times, be sure to check out the event coming up on Sunday in Chicago, Bound for Glory Fallout from Impact, the Lucha Libre Celebration hosted by Konnan himself. Now we move on to my conversation with Mr. Marceau, breaking down a very eventful past week in the world of wrestling, from the season premiere of SmackDown, the season premiere of Raw, and now the part 2, I guess, season premiere of WrestleRant Radio. We might as well label every episode the season premiere of WrestleRant Radio, Mr. Marceau, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly it could be every week. I think we might need to start doing every week better ratings, I think, though.
I think so. We got the new graphic and got everything going now as part of the next era of WrestleRant Radio. So listen, why not now to make it the season premiere of WrestleRant Radio? We'll label it, or I guess last week I called it the season premiere. This is the season premiere part 2. We're getting Halloween Havoc part 1 and 2 starting next week. We'll have some thoughts on that coming up a little bit later on in the show. But I do want to start off, Mr. Marceau, with the obvious, with SmackDown last week. Now, we don't really typically talk about SmackDown, and it's been almost a week by the time this goes up, obviously. But it was a very eventful episode, a very good show from the Blue brand last Friday night. A lot of stuff going on, which we got to get into here. First one being, we finally found out who was traded to SmackDown in exchange for Jey Uso going to Raw, who we'll get to a little bit later on. They had a undisputed WWE Tag Team title defense on Raw this week, as well as on SmackDown, Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. But Jey Uso moving to Raw, we finally found out last week who's headed to SmackDown, and that's Kevin Owens, the former undisputed WWE Tag Team Champion, being separated from Sami Zayn, arriving on SmackDown last week, immediately taking it to Dominic Mysterio, who is a Raw superstar. So if you ever needed proof as to why the brand split does not exist or it does not matter, right there is your evidence. Just because they're making a big deal about, Kevin Owens is on the Blue brand now, even though he was on the Blue brand, not officially, but it was constantly appearing on SmackDown pretty much weekly earlier on this year while feuding with the Bloodline, and now he's back on SmackDown, I guess officially now, even though Dominic's not on SmackDown. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but they have told the story that he's being separated from Sami because of Cody. If Cody didn't get Jey to Raw, then Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would still be together. I love the subtle storytelling here. And I think Kevin Owens has a bright future ahead of him on SmackDown as a single superstar for the first time in a while. So give me your rundown, give me your thoughts on Kevin Owens moving to SmackDown, and whether you saw this coming, because I know we've talked about Cody Rhodes being the obvious choice, but I think Cody Rhodes has more to do on Raw for right now, and moving Kevin Owens instead might make more sense in the interim.
No, yeah, I liked it. I mean, I think I saw reports like a couple days before it'd probably be Kevin, but I do think I like it just because him and Sami were just like a tag team guys that were on Raw, and I feel like they just needed to split up. I think they were teaming up basically since Sami lost to Roman in Elimination Chamber, so I think they're two singles guys that could use a split. Go Kevin over to SmackDown, and then Sami stays on Raw. But I think it's a good split for both of them. I think we haven't seen Sami in the singles action in a while, especially as a babyface. So that's a good start for him, and then Kevin, a nice fresh start on SmackDown, who, I mean, they don't really have a ton of top baby faces, so I don't hate it. Like, besides Rey, who's seemingly going to go against Logan Paul, I feel like there really isn't too many top-tier SmackDown baby faces. So I like that. Basically, Jey going over, flip Kevin, and then we'll see more of Kevin getting his own spotlight as well.
I think it's a worthy trade because Jey Uso has really emerged in the last couple of months as a big breakout babyface. I mean, we kind of expected that about a month ago when he first moved to Raw and then coming out of SummerSlam, but he's really grown into his own in that main event Jey Uso role. He's main evented Raw, former tag team champion. Again, we'll get into that soon enough. But if Jey Uso is going to be a single star going into WrestleMania, maybe even coming out of WrestleMania, once the Jimmy Uso feud is done, I don't think they just hug and make up and then go back to being a tag team. I think at this point, the money in Jey is on his own, which I never thought I would say even a year ago, let alone 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Check the archives. I've constantly said the Usos are stronger together than they are apart. But Jey Uso in the last 3 years, since this whole bloodline stuff started, has really come into his own as a great dynamic character. In the ring, on the mic, just an overall character. I think he can do well on his own on Raw. And I think, Jimmy Uso, the jury is still out. He's still kind of doing the bloodline thing. But Kevin Owens is a very popular babyface in his own right. And moving him to SmackDown in exchange for Jey, to me, makes sense. What do you see Kevin Owens doing on SmackDown, kind of like for right now, because he's not going back after the Bloodline. He should not go back after the Bloodline. We've already seen him and Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble, not once, not twice, but 3 times since 2017. No real reason to, kind of revisit that rivalry. The United States Championship, we'll talk about in a second, being currently in the mix with Rey Mysterio and the LWO, Profits and Lashley, Logan Paul going back after going after the Star Spangled Prize for the first time, coming up at Crown Jewel, presumably. Again, we'll get into that momentarily. Where does Kevin Owens go for right now? Does he, I would assume, probably feud with Austin Theory and Grayson Waller for now, and then after that, maybe after Roman loses the championship, ideally at WrestleMania, maybe he can go after the championship. And again, there's a story to be told there with Cody Rhodes. When he becomes champion, very likely at WrestleMania, and Cody moves over to SmackDown to kind of honor his commitments as the WWE champion, then you could do an Owens and Cody feud and turn Cody, or rather Kevin at that point, for blaming Cody for getting him moved to SmackDown, blah, blah, blah. Maybe him and Bobby Lashley. I'm just kind of struggling to think what the obvious direction is right now for Kevin Owens on SmackDown, since he's probably not going after that World Championship anytime soon, nor should he.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, definitely. I think just skimming through the SmackDown roster right now, like you said, I think the only thing immediately that makes sense is Theory and Waller. I mean, I think they should probably get more wins to kind of solidify themselves. But besides that, I mean, yeah, like you said, Lashley and the Profits are dealing with LWO. There really isn't other big-time heels. Like, I mean, Karrion Kross, but we haven't even seen him in a little bit. There really isn't anyone else for him to go after unless you're going, like you said, right into the bloodline, or if he continues the feud with the Judgment Day. But I guess you would just say Theory and Waller, but besides that, there really isn't anyone of note that is at least free. Everyone else is kind of dealing with other storylines, so I would say that, I guess that would be the first thing you do with them.
It honestly probably will be Karrion Kross, who I totally forgot about until you mentioned his name. And I like Karrion Kross a lot, but I just think he's at a point now, with the way he's been booked since he came back over a year ago, where he's just dead in the water. Would you agree with that? Is he, we use this term a lot, damaged goods. Is he damaged goods yet? I mean, I wouldn't go quite that far. I think he can be rebuilt. But he's endured enough losses and enough important high-profile losses. I mean, they lost to AJ Styles 3 times over the summer. Didn't beat him a single time. And he hasn't been seen since that last match, maybe a month or two ago. And I saw these reports, again, from uncredible sources as far as, he's getting a push and Triple H back in charge. They want to reboot Karrion Kross. I haven't seen that from any credible source, and I can't say I believe that, because I feel like if that was going to happen, it would have happened by now. But what do you think the outlook is for Karrion Kross on SmackDown? Is he done, or is there more that can be done to kind of rebuild him? Is there hope for Karrion Kross fans out there?
I think there's hope. I mean, I don't think he's like dead and buried at this point, but I think at this point it's pretty much this next move with him is either boom or bust. I mean, with someone like Kross, I liked what they did originally when he debuted. He went right after Drew, won originally, and then lost a feud. But it's tough when you go in a feud, especially, I mean, I don't know if this is booking 101, but I just feel like if you're going up against a top guy, especially once you presumably win, which he didn't at the end, you would then go right in the title picture. But he went right in that, and then he went downgraded from there, and they said just lost a ton coming out of that Drew feud, and just seemingly the crowd wasn't really with him. It was kind of like a Hit Row 2.0. I mean, they were there at the beginning, and then a couple months went by, started eating more losses, and the crowd kind of gave up. And then they seemingly haven't done anything with them since. So he said lost to AJ. It's tough because I feel like with SmackDown specifically, like, he's not going for the main title because Roman's a heel. He's not going after that. I feel like he contended maybe a little bit for the U.S. title, never won it. It's just tough. It's tough for SmackDown to specifically be a heel because if you're not winning the U.S. title or in that picture, there really isn't anything for you to do right now. That's what I feel like. It's tough to picture what they do with him because Theory and Grayson are, like, they're not doing anything. And I would say, like, they're, like, pretty much the next guys with, like, Bobby and the Profits who are feuding with the LWO. But besides that, there really isn't anything for them to do.
Yeah, I don't know. It's at a weird spot right now where there's a lot of guys on SmackDown where I feel like they don't really have an obvious direction, and Karrion's one of them. If they really wanted to reboot him, I could see them doing it. I'm just not really sure how they go about it because, again, he's lost to Drew, he's lost to AJ Styles, he's lost to Rey Mysterio a bunch of times. There's LA Knight, I guess, but LA Knight is so hot right now that I mean, that would be just a step down for LA Knight if that feud were to happen anytime soon. But let's talk about LA Knight. He is officially, not officially, but presumably, the number one contender for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship at Crown Jewel, beating Solo Sikoa by pinfall on Friday's SmackDown, being only one of 3 people to do it on the main roster, Cody being the first, right before WrestleMania, Jey Uso being the second, right before SummerSlam a couple of months ago, and now LA Knight. Albeit not clean, but still, he beat him. An impressive feat. Nonetheless, he's on his way and white hot right now to Crown Jewel to challenge for the championship. So he's obviously not winning, but your thoughts about them moving right into this match right now, because we just talked about last week, I would probably wait until the Rumble or maybe even Survivor Series. They're jumping into it right now. I thought AJ Styles would come back on the show and we would get Roman and AJ on that show, but it sounds like they're saving AJ, or rather Roman and AJ, probably for Survivor Series. I had seen, I think yesterday, that AJ's being advertised for that post-Crown Jewel edition of SmackDown, so that would seem to make sense. But, your thoughts on LA Knight being moved into that role right now for the Undisputed Championship at Crown Jewel?
Yeah, I was honestly pretty shocked. We talked about it last week. I just felt like I saw reports and it seemed like the direction they're going was Cena first, but seemingly we're going to get him and Roman and Knight at Crown Jewel. I don't know if I like it or hate it. I don't know if they're just... Because I just feel like once he loses the Roman, it's like, then what do you do with him?
Yeah. I
just feel like, also, if you do it now and he's in the Rumble and doesn't win, people are going to be pissed, which, I mean, I guess he could win. I don't think I wouldn't say he's my betting favorite to win right now, but I don't know. It's kind of weird, but, maybe they're trying to, really get on his popularity. He's fucking way hot now. I don't think it's going to fall off in 3 months, but I think that's the only thing I could think of that comes to my head, that's why they do it right now. Just maybe he's so hot right now they want to capitalize on it, but I just also don't think he's going to fall off like a cliff in 3 months. So we'll see. Like you said, I don't think there's really any chance for him to win here, but it's interesting. Like I said, I guess I would say that's what I'd come out of it. It's just very interesting because I feel like I would have waited, but they're seemingly going right into it.
Listen, we've talked about it as far as doing it at the Rumble would make the most sense, just because for the exact reason that you mentioned. If he's in the Rumble match, then he's going to be the fan favorite to win the entire thing on the babyface side. But if he's challenging Roman Reigns on that show for the championship, then people won't get their hopes up for him winning the Royal Rumble. The exact same scenario, albeit a little bit different, with Sami Zayn earlier this year. Everyone wanted him to win that match and go on to face Roman at WrestleMania. That was never going to happen. It was always going to be Cody Rhodes. But they dodged that bullet by people booing Cody when he won by not even putting Sami in it. And it's not like he wasn't even on the show. He was involved in the Roman Reigns main event against Kevin Owens for the championship. So it made sense, and they closed out the show on a great note with Sami Zayn setting up his title match for Elimination Chamber in Montreal as opposed to WrestleMania. So they could have avoided that whole LA Knight inevitable debacle at the Royal Rumble by just having him face Roman there. Could they do a rematch with him there? Sure, but having him lose twice to Roman probably isn't ideal. I don't want to see a non-finish at Crown Jewel. So, I don't know what they do with him in the interim when he loses, at Crown Jewel, because he's not beating Roman Reigns. But I do have a slight idea. I tweeted this, I think, right after SmackDown, and I've been sitting on this for a couple days. What are your thoughts on the possibility, and again, the timing doesn't really work out because Mania is not for another 6 months. I don't know how they're going to bridge the gap. But I do think Logan Paul, he's going to be on SmackDown on this Friday, and also on Raw next week. But on SmackDown, we know he's, confronting Rey Mysterio, who's responding to Logan's challenge after winning his fight last week. So that's probably the match for Crown Jewel, presumably for the United States Championship. Why wouldn't it be? Because Logan Paul says he wants that title. I think Logan Paul's winning that championship. He said in an interview earlier this year when he re-signed with WWE that he wants gold. I don't think it's going to be the World Championship. I don't think it should be the World Championship. Logan Paul is great, but if he's going to be a part-timer, it probably should be a mid-card title. Now, what I don't like about that is that it would take him away from SmackDown at a time where we also don't have a World Champion, full-time either, with Roman Reigns still being champion, probably until Mania. But I do think Logan Paul takes the title. I could see LA Knight being the one to dethrone him, probably at WrestleMania. I'm surprised they haven't done Logan Paul versus LA Knight already after their interactions going into Money in the Bank, at Money in the Bank. They never really followed up on that, and I think the reason being is that they want to save that for a Mania, and that's a big spot for LA Knight to be in. Get a singles match at Mania. If it's not for the WWE Championship or the World Heavyweight Championship, he can challenge for the U.S. title and win it there, his first singles title on the main roster. So your thoughts on LA Knight's road to WrestleMania and that being a potential option, and also your thoughts just in general on Logan Paul challenging for the United States Championship at Crown Jewel.
Yeah, I think, like you said, I like that idea. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly how you bridge the gap. I mean, we still have to see what's happening with the bloodline. Maybe if they do the War Games at Survivor Series, he's stuck in that, and we kind of get towards the Rumble. Maybe LNA costs them. I don't know. You get somewhere. You find it out. I don't think I'm not worried about that. I do think that's a good match. Like I said, if it's not going for the main title, I think that'd be like a nice spot for him. Win gold there and finally kind of cement his singles run because he's over, but, I mean, he's got nothing to show for it. So I feel like the title could kind of solidify that he's the top player and kind of move towards a world title, WWE Universe, or whatever the hell you want to call it, in 2024. So, no, I like that idea. With Paul, like you said, I think it's a good idea for him to win mid-card belt, but like you said, specifically for SmackDown, don't overly love it because then if he's champion, I don't see him going to Corpus Christi on a random Friday night in November. So I think then it would be kind of a sucky experience because then you'd have both main singles titles gone from SmackDown on a weekly basis. I mean, maybe we get more emphasis on the women, maybe the tag team division, but I would say ideally that's not ideal.
Yeah, no, and listen, on the bright side, I mean, just weighing the pros and cons between what you mentioned, what I mentioned, I think the match between him and Rey is going to be great, too. That's a fresh match, and I know they talked about the possibility of them facing off when Rey was on his podcast earlier this year. I think that'll be a great match. What I also don't really like about it is that I've always envisioned Santos Escobar being the one to dethrone Rey Mysterio as champion. They had their match a couple of weeks ago, and Rey won. But the way Santos sold that loss made you think, all right, this guy's going to be coming for a rematch, turning heel at some point. I could see a scenario where Santos maybe is the one to cost Rey Mysterio that championship or maybe cost him the rematch, and they have their feud, just not over the United States Championship.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you could do something that, like, even if he doesn't cost him the belt, like, he's just mad that he didn't give him the rematch and he got it, like, he gave it to Logan first. I don't know. I feel like you could do something like that. I mean, I think Santos going heel is obviously where this is going. I like him a lot better as a heel anyway, so I hope that's the direction they're going in, but I don't think it has to specifically be over the United States Championship. But it probably definitely would help. I feel like even with the kind of branding of the LWO, it definitely hasn't helped. I think it's helped Zelina the most out of everyone. Even I would even say over Rey. Like, Rey doesn't need it. Like, I feel like Del Toro and Wild, even Escobar, I feel like the fans could, like, clearly give a rat's ass when they hear the LWO music. With Zelina specifically, I feel like it's helped her tremendously. So I think the title would probably help people care a little bit more, just because I think even with the branding, it hasn't helped Santos too much. But I think if he cost Rey, people would still kind of get into it. So I think it doesn't have to be for the title, but it probably would help.
You can have an LWO Civil War with Carlito having to choose a side or something like that.
Anything's possible, pal.
Hey, listen, Rey and Carlito team against, Joaquin Wilde and Cruz del Toro and Santos or whatever it might be. I wouldn't be opposed to it, just an option. But I mentioned Roman Reigns and how, he's probably facing LA Knight at Crown Jewel. He's probably facing AJ Styles at Survivor Series. I would have swapped the two or saved LA Knight for the Rumble, but they're doing those matches now. I don't know who Roman Reigns faces at the Rumble. I mean, Randy Orton's an option, by the way. Randy Orton is due back. Reportedly, we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, but he could be due back by Survivor Series. And if they do a War Games match on that show, which apparently was the working plan, I don't know if it still is now that Vince has gone out of creative. I mean, that was a Triple H idea last year, so I would think they're still going to do it. Randy would make sense because it kind of throws a wrench into my plans for what the War Games match was going to be. We talked about War Games last week and what I would do with Owens and Zayn and Cody and Seth and who was the other person? Drew? I don't remember, but I said something along those lines as far as Jay Uso. Yeah, Jay, that's what it was. Against the Judgment Day and Drew. That's not happening now. With Kevin Owens on SmackDown, that completely messes it up. I don't know if I can see more of Sami Zayn against the Judgment Day anyway. Could the War Games match be something Bloodline related, where instead of 4-on-4 or 5-on-5, it's 3v3v3, kind of like what we saw with that initial War Games match back in 2017 in NXT, with Roddy and AOP and Undisputed Era, Insanity and whatever, so there's a couple different directions they can go in. But anyway, so I think the ultimate endgame, though, regardless of what they do in the meantime, at the Rumble, maybe Randy comes back, whatever, all roads, pun intended, will lead to Roman and Cody at WrestleMania. We've been skeptical about this. I mean, more so you than me as far as that we're getting this match. Not that I was 1,000% sure of it. I'm just thinking, I've been saying for months, we have to get the match. There's no fucking way we don't get the match. I mean, there is a way that we could not get it because this is WWE, but it seems pretty set in stone at this point. They've made up their minds. I saw the report a couple days ago, Rock and Roman not expected for Mania 40. Then I was almost going to quote tweet and say, well, the sky's blue. What else is new? No shit, the match isn't going to happen. This was never going to happen. We were always, if it wasn't Rock, it was going to be someone facing Roman at Mania. Rock was never going to compete at Mania. I guess he still could or appear or something. I know the strike is still ongoing, the actor strike. He's just not going to commit to it. He's just not going to. I wish he'd be more realistic about that and just kind of talk about it like John Cena did, where John Cena said, I can't do both. I can't do the acting, I can't do the wrestling simultaneously. There's insurance issues, stuff like that. The Rock has never talked about that. He said he controls the schedule. My fucking ass. I mean, if he controlled the schedule, he would have been back by now. But anyway, and that's coming from someone who would like to see the match at some point, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I'm kind of reserved to the idea that it's probably never going to happen. But it's got to be Cody and Roman at WrestleMania coming off that face-off at the end of SmackDown last week, right? I mean, they planted the seeds. There's no way they don't do it after that, I think.
No, I think it's definitely going to happen. I mean, I'm ready to catch your tears when Roman beats him again, but no, I think that's exactly where it's going. But, I mean, honestly, I'm not even convinced Cody will win.
I mean, listen, I'm not you can't be convinced. I said that going into Mania last year. I figured Cody would win, but you can't. I mean, I was shocked that he lost, but you know, I said you can't be too surprised if he loses because they really want to break these records with Roman. And I talked about this in an article today, actually, that with Roman Reigns, if he beats Cody again, which is a real possibility, you can't say, he has to win. No, I mean, he does have to win, but that doesn't mean that he will win. There's a big difference there. He should win and he has to win, but that doesn't mean that they will book him to have him win. You got to remember that the upcoming records, quote unquote, there's only really one record, but you know, they like to say that he'll surpass this person on the list, that person on the list, blah, blah, blah. Hogan has a record. No, I'm sorry. Bruno has a record in early January that Roman's going to surpass by Mania. That's not in doubt. He's going to beat that record. That's like 1,200 days. He's already at like 1,100, so that's no real surprise. Come Mania, he'll be at 1,002 or 300 or something. If they want to break the next record, and we've heard about this for a while, there's a Hogan record next September in a little less than a year. He would have been champion for 4 fucking years at this point if Roman retains at WrestleMania, which if he retains at Mania, he's not losing it until Mania 41. We know this. He's not losing it in Des Moines at a house show. So I think he would retain. He would break the Hogan record next September, which would be 1,400 and something days. And then from there, I think he'd be the third longest reigning champion in company history. And I think the other 2 reigns are like 7 years from Roman, or I'm sorry, from San Martino. And another one might be a Bob Backlund one, which might be 4 or 5. I don't remember. It's something, might be 5 years.
So the Backlund one's 1470, the Hogan's 1474.
So where are those on the list? Is that 2 and 3 or is that 3 and 4? I think it's 3 and 4, right?
I have it shown as Bruno's the longest, 2008-03. Hogan's second with 1474, and Backlund's 1470.
Wow, so there's
that's 2 and 3. And then Bruno has another one that's 1237.
Yeah, that's the one that he would break in January. So they really only have to have Roman hold the championship until next September, I think it is. And then he would break every record aside from Bruno. I mean, listen, it could happen. It's very possible, like you said, where he retains at WrestleMania and they go on to have him break all the... I mean, I don't think he's breaking Bruno's last record of, fucking 8-7 years? That means we're not even in the third inning yet. We're still in, like, the top of the second.
The only thing is, like, technically, so Bruno's record is from 1963.
Yep.
So if he beats the Hogan record, they could say the longest reign in 50 years.
Yeah, they could. They could
so,
put that on a
t-shirt.
t-shirt.
You'd have to beat Hogan, though.
Yeah, which is next September.
Honestly, at this point, just have him beat Bruno's record at this point. There'd be like another 7 years. It's so bad.
No, it'd be another. Well, realistically, it'd be another 3 or 4 years. Which
but that's still
that's an eternity. It's already been an eternity.
4 more years of Roman champion. No thanks.
I'll be dead by then. Oh my god. No thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, he would have to basically be champion for another year, and he beat Hogan's record, and they could say he's the longest champion over 50 years.
They could do it, dude. They could definitely do it. And then they just have him drop it in another year and a half in Mania 4. And you say it sounds crazy. I mean, we kind of talk about it like it sounds crazy. We sat here a year ago saying, how could they have him hold it for another year? He's already been champion for 2 years. And then here we are fucking a year later, and he's still been champion for over 3 years. Like, it's better now that we have 2 belts, obviously, but it's still not ideal. I mean, there's nothing for these people. I mean, he's not full-time either. I mean, that's the problem. He defends it 3 times a year. No champion has ever defended it this infrequently. No chance. Even like in the San Martino days, they had house shows and shit.
Even Brock defended it more.
That's what I'm saying. I think Roman probably has been the least defending champion. I'm not saying his entire reign, because his whole reign, I think, has been among the greatest of all time. I've said that before. People just kind of think about the last year and how infrequently he's defended it. True, but overall he's defended it a lot. This year alone, and probably next year if he retains, which I'm not saying he will or will not, definitely. Brock definitely defended it more when he was champion in 2015, he held the belt like 7 times, but still, it's pretty fucking dumb. I don't know. I don't think he should retain. I don't think he should hold on. I mean, he really shouldn't have retained at WrestleMania, and Cody Rhodes should have won. I said that every single week, but here we are, and he's still champion, so I think the bottom line here is do not be convinced that Cody Rhodes is walking out of WrestleMania still champion. I'm convinced we're getting the match. I'm not convinced that he's winning yet. Until I hear that 1, 2, 3, I'm not convinced that Cody Rhodes is walking out as champion.
No, I mean, I'm dead set that. I mean, the thing is, I just don't know why would you do the match again, just have Cody lose. Because I feel like it'd make him look like a fucking bigger loser here. I would just not do the match again. I just feel like putting him in at WrestleMania again to lose would be just the dumbest thing ever.
Gotta stretch out the story. He needs more adversity.
Guy can beat anybody but, basically at that point he beats everyone but Roman.
Yeah, they could say that about anyone, though. Everyone else can beat all these other people, but they can't beat Roman when it actually matters.
Oh, Jesus.
The guy's friggin' a god among men in this company, and he can't be beaten. And you know what? Actually, he's going to get hurt before he can break the record, and they're going to have to take the championship off of him anyway.
No, there's Cody?
Roman.
How can he get hurt? He never works, pal.
Yeah, true, but imagine the one match he does work, he has a serious injury where they take the belt off of him, and he doesn't even get beaten for it. He just has to relinquish it. Maybe he just drops it like Asuka did in NXT, where she's defeated everyone, so she just gives it up. Maybe that's what happens.
I mean, honestly, if he got hurt, I feel like they'd still keep it on him.
Yeah, no, they probably would. There's no way that you put 4 years of stock into one performer and then he just drops it. No chance. I mean, there's a chance. Anything can happen, but that'd be pretty fucking terrible. One last thing on the SmackDown side of things from last week's show. Nick Aldis is the new SmackDown GM. We got dueling GMs back with Adam Pearce running Raw now as the GM. I love this a lot. Not only the fact that we have GMs back, because I'm a big, GM, those are my initials, but I also just love the GM concept, and we haven't had it in almost 5 years. It was tired when they first moved away from it in 2018, but it feels fresh again. And listen, if you want to do a brand split right, you need general managers. And I think these are 2 guys, 2 former NWA World's Heavyweight Champions, that make the most sense. Adam Pearce has been around. He'll be exclusive to Raw. You don't have to overexpose him. And Nick Aldis, I think, is great for the role. Hopefully he does wrestle at some point. I saw some people say, he's hurt. He's got a back injury. I mean, he said that months ago. I don't think that's still the case. I think they just don't have any plans for him in the ring right now. I hope they do put him in the ring at some point. He's only 34, 35, 36. He's really not old at all. And he can still go. He can still go, and he's still great. So, but he's also a great talker, and I think he can make the most of this opportunity and the exposure he's going to get from being in that role. And maybe that's going to, fare even better for him when he goes in the ring at some point, because people will have been exposed to him, they know who he is, as opposed to just bringing him in cold as a performer, and then he just gets lost in the shuffle. So your thoughts, Mr. Marceau, and Nick Aldis as the new SmackDown GM running the Blue brand with Adam Pearce running Raw over on Monday nights?
Yeah, I think it's a good addition if you, like you said, if you're really worried about the brand split and having, I like Adam Pearce, but I feel like by the end he was just getting so tiresome. Poor guys that go to every show. I'm glad they finally got someone else for SmackDown. Like I said, I guess more if they have a draft, it'd make more sense now. It's not like Adam Pearce is picking people for different shows. At least there's a different dynamic there. Like I said, I think obviously there would be some money in him actually wrestling. I think with the GM role, similar to what they do with Shane McMahon, people thought he abused his power and they wrestled him at WrestleMania. I feel like you could do the same thing with Aldis. Mm-hmm. And then maybe eventually get him more of a actual in-ring competitor. But I think, like you said, at least exposing him here is better than just him coming in cold and no one knowing who he really is.
Yeah, or just him going to NXT. I don't really think there's a place for him in NXT. I think he's outgrown NXT. I know Brian Pillman Jr., Lexus King is there. We'll talk about that in a little while. But I think he's too big for NXT at this point. him just going to the main roster as a GM, I think, makes the most sense. So I'm a big fan of the move. I think he'll make the most of it, and he's a great talker. So he's already doing a great job just one night in. So I think he'll be a great fit as the GM of the Blue brand. Talking about Raw from Monday night, the season premiere, a really good show. We had Gunther and Bronson Reed for the Intercontinental Championship. I thought they ripped it up and had a really, really good match. More drama with Drew, and he's facing Sami Zayn next week and all this other sort of stuff. We talked about Kevin Owens earlier. Sami Zayn opened Raw on Monday night. I didn't ask you this at the time. I should have asked him when we were on the topic of Kevin Owens. But you mentioned Sami Zayn a little bit as far as what his future could hold on his own. What do you see his ceiling being on Raw on his own? This is the first time we've seen Sami Zayn on his own as a babyface in probably 6 years. He was with the Bloodline previously, and he's been a babyface since, like March or whatever, but he was in a tag team with Kevin, so now he's finally back on his own. Is it the Intercontinental Championship? Is it the World Championship? I think both of those things are very possible with Sami Zayn. Now he's back to being on his own on Monday nights.
I think both. I would say both. I mean, I think the easy answer would say just Intercontinental, but I think he's over enough as a babyface. I mean, what we've seen with Rollins, I think anyone could be the world champion at this point. I just can't.
The gimmick, I can't.
The gimmick, I just can't. It's literally gets me mad every week, but we're talking about Sammy here. But I think the easy answer is like, oh yeah, IC title. But honestly, I think he could get a World Heavyweight Championship run. I mean, they teased it with him and Drew on Raw. But I think it's possible. I like Sammy a lot. I think he's obviously grown the last couple of years as a heel. Obviously reversed into a babyface. But I think it's possible. I think Intercontinental obviously is more attainable. Maybe he's the one that beat Gunther. I don't know. But I think World Championship should not be out of the question.
No, I don't think so. I think it's more possible now that we have 2 World Championships and not just one. He was never going to beat Roman Reigns. I mean, people thought that. I know you thought that back at Elimination Chamber. Check the archives. But listen, it didn't happen because guess what? Cody beat him at WrestleMania, so it was... Oh, wait, he didn't. Never mind. But still, though, I think Sami Zayn can win the World Heavyweight Championship at some point down the road. I like the idea with Drew and him working with them and whatever. So the Drew stuff continues to be one of the better parts of the show. The slow burn heel turn heading into the Rollins match. I texted you the other day. I'm hoping Rollins beats him. McIntyre beats Rollins at Crown Jewel. The Rollins character, we already talked about Rollins last week, but the character is just I don't even know what it's supposed to be. The outfits are just outrageous. He's over, so it's not like he's getting booed like he was 4 years ago when he was Universal Champion. But I appreciate that he gets serious when he needs to, but I'm surprised we haven't already seen a shift of this character where he starts to become more serious consistently and not just when he needs to be motivated. He just comes out and does the song stuff forever, and it's just fucking annoying. But again, I would say that's just my opinion, but I know that's an opinion that you share as well. So I'm looking forward to their match at Crown Jewel, though. The other big development on Monday night was the fact that we have new undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions for the 3rd time in 6 weeks. So just to kind of catch everyone up here, we had at Payback a month and a half ago, Owens and Zayn dropped the belts to the Judgment Day's Finn Balor and Damian Priest. A month later, at Fastlane, or 5 weeks later, actually, the Judgment Day then lose the belts to Cody and Jay. I wasn't sold on it, but they work so well as a team. They can go to SmackDown, they can interact with Roman, blah, blah, blah. Cool. I think that makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot of different things you can do. They worked with Waller and Theory on Friday. Pretty cool stuff. 3 days after that interaction with Roman, they dropped the belts right back to the Judgment Day with Jimmy Uso's help. So, we talked about this before we hit record here. I just don't get it. I don't really know why you would take the belts off of Judgment Day just to put it back on them. I know it was to add heat to the Jimmy and Jay feud, which isn't culminating until Mania anyway, so it just felt like it was too soon for that. And if the idea was that Jimmy wants to help out Roman because, he wants... I don't think he's back in the bloodline officially. I honestly don't really know. They haven't really made that clear, interestingly enough. But if he wants back in the bloodline and wants to help out Roman by ensuring Cody and Jay don't pop up on SmackDown, he just popped up on Raw, and he's not a champion. And Cody and Jay were also on SmackDown 2 weeks ago. And I've been waiting for this since the draft in April, and it's not going to happen. Until they say no one can appear on the other brand unless you're a champion, unless you're like the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions, then this stuff doesn't matter. Because this whole idea that, we can't pop up in the other show, we see people cross brands every single week, so that brand split shit doesn't even matter. What were your thoughts, though, watching this? It was a great match, don't get me wrong, but I just think the hot potato booking doesn't do the belts any favors. And I know you were super high on the duo of Cody and Jay as a tag team as champions, and now they're no longer champions. So what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, not that I was like, they're definitely going to lose. I just had a feeling they weren't going to win. I don't know. I just had a feeling after SmackDown there was a good chance they would drop the belts. Like you said, I don't know. I feel like the only thing for me that makes sense, if it's like you said, like, obviously the Jay and Jimmy's not going to happen at WrestleMania. Maybe if they're going to do like a Bloodline, Judgment Day versus like kind of the baby faces at Survivor Series and War Games, that's the only thing that makes sense. Like, because then they'd have to get some kind of comeuppance, or it'd be something like, obviously Jimmy cost the match. Or like, there would have to be some kind of interaction, like you said, and they're not champions. Like, they theoretically shouldn't be showing up on SmackDown, but I assume that we'll see them on Friday night. But that's the only thing to me that makes sense, is like he helped them, because obviously there was like some kind of agreement between Heyman and Rhea. So like if we get kind of some like Judgment Day, Bloodline versus the baby faces at War Games, it's the only thing for me that makes any sense on why this happened right now.
Yeah, I mean, so with that being said, we've talked about it a lot. What do you think that War Games match looks like now if Cody and Jay are no longer the tag team champions? Is it an interpromotional match with Cody in the ring with the Bloodline, or does it involve the Judgment Day? What do you think it looks like?
I think it would be like a mixture of, like I said, it'd be like Jay. I think it would be Jimmy, Solo, Damian, Finn,
Dominic?
maybe Drew if he's champion.
Okay.
I'm not sure, because I don't want Dominic in it. I feel like he doesn't really belong. But you could do that, and then it'd be Cody, Jay, Sammy, Kevin, and the fifth guy would either have maybe Seth at that point, depending if the title, if you want to put Seth in there. I mean, theoretically, depending on what happens with Owens, like I said, maybe we could sneak Randy in there. Like maybe since he's the only guy in SmackDown, they basically beat up Kevin. He can't be in the match, and that's how we get Randy on the team.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think that's where that's headed. If that happens, then okay, I'm fine with it. But like besides that, like you said, it kind of makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Randy Orton could be a likely possibility, but I don't know. I understand the reason why they did it on Monday. I'm curious if this was the plan as far back as Fastlane, or if they just did this because they felt like it. I don't really know if Cody Rhodes and Jay aren't the champions anymore after 8-9 days. How do you bridge the gap with them between now and WrestleMania before they face Roman and Jimmy respectively?
Like I said, I feel like you do that, and then yeah, I mean,
could you do Cody and Drew maybe? I don't know.
You could do that. I mean, then what do you do with Jimmy or Jay then? It's like, do you have him, like, does he go after Gunther? I don't know. Like, I feel like there's so much going on. I mean, I think they're over enough that I'm not worried about like exactly what they do with them, because I feel like there's spots for them. It's just kind of piecing it together to get to WrestleMania. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, they're over enough to where they won't be completely directionless, but I guess it's part of the fun, right? We don't really know where this is going or what they're going to do next, but, so far so good, so I guess we'll see. I'm not a big fan of the constant title changes, and I hope we don't see another one for a while. I do think DIY would be the perfect team to take those titles off of Judgment Day at some point. I also do think with the belts being back on Judgment Day, this prolongs the Money in the Bank cash-in from Damian even further. I don't think we were getting that imminently anyway, assuming he even cashes in successfully, which he should, I think. We've had enough failed cash-ins lately for the men that he needs to cash in successfully. We'll see where it goes. I'm curious. And Raw's, it's a lot of fun to follow right now with Triple H being back in charge and creative control completely. So I'm curious to see where they go from here. But as we wind down here, I just want to get your thoughts real quickly on just a few things. Halloween Havoc is coming up next week. We got a bunch of matches advertised. Night 1, Night 2 is in 2 weeks. So that show is going to be headlined by Ilya and Carmelo Hayes 3, the rubber match for the NXT Championship, which should be excellent. But Night 1 of Halloween Havoc, just want to get some quick predictions from you here as far as what that show is going to look like. NXT been firing on all cylinders lately. Not a hot show on Tuesday, but it was a setup show for what Halloween Havoc is going to bring next Tuesday. But we got a lot of matches coming into the show, including 2 NXT Women's Breakout Tournament matches. I know you said you were high on Lola Vice last week, but on this show, Lola Vice is going to take on Carmen Petrovic, who went over on Tuesday's show, and Kalani Jordan is going to take on Ariana Grace, the daughter of Santino Marella, if it wasn't already obvious. I mean, she looks exactly like him. Who do you think goes over in those matches and advances to the next round of the Breakout Tournament?
I would say Vice and Grace.
Grace, okay. I think Jordan's going to win. I think because Jordan.
So? I mean, she is more of a baby face. So if you're going with Vice, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible as well. I mean, I think I think I mentioned it last. I do think Kalani Jordan has a good look, and I mean she's still very green. They all are, but I think she has a good look and definitely breakout potential. And the same with Vice. So if you're gonna go with the face, I kind of forgot that Vice is more of a heel. So yeah, I think if you're going babyface heel, that would make the most sense.
I think it's safe to say Braun Breaker's destroying Mr. Stone next week.
Yes.
Yeah, we're still in the midst of this Braun Breaker Von Wagner storyline. Braun Breaker just shit him on the main roster months ago. I don't really know what the holdup is here, but he's clearly going to kill Mr. Stone next week. Roxanne Perez and Kiana James in a spin the wheel, make the deal match, which is going to be a Devil's Playground match. I think Roxanne Perez defeats Kiana James. I feel like that'd be the safe bet here.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I think similar with Breaker. I feel like with Perez, they're kind of just spinning their wheels right now in NXT. I like both of them, but I mean they both should be on the main roster at this point. They're kind of just doing nothing of note.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the fact that on this show alone, coming up next week, I just realized this. We're gonna have 5 women's matches. They had 4 women's matches on this week's show. I think they're gonna have 5 next week between the 2 we already mentioned, that match we just mentioned, and also Blair Davenport and Gigi Dolan in another spin the wheel, make the deal match, a lights out match. This should be great. I think these two can go in there and have a really good match. Their last match wasn't all that great. It was 3 minutes long. But I'm looking forward to this one. I think Blair Davenport goes over because Gigi Dolan barely won the first one. So I think Davenport gets her win back here.
Yeah, I like Dolan and Davenport respectively. I would probably, like you said, I'd probably go with Davenport as well. I feel like she needs a win to kind of solidify her heel turn. I would go with her.
Yeah, I agree. NXT Tag Team titles on the line. The families, Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo, defending against Chase Hughes, Andre Chase, and Duke Hudson. The family just won the titles. I mean, they've been champions now for 3 months with only a defense or 2. I don't think they become champions here. I think, what's her name? Who's the girl from Chase Hughes? Oh my God, I'm blanking here. The student. Not JC
Which
James.
one?
The blonde girl, Thea Hale. I don't know how I blanked on her name. I feel like she's
not blonde anymore either. She's dark hair
now. She's got dark hair now. My bad. I feel like she's gonna inadvertently cost Chase U the win here, and they're gonna lose the match because of them.
No, I think the family wins. Like you said, I mean they just won the belts. I like Hale a lot. Like I said, I mean get her away from Chase U if you ask me. So I wouldn't mind her costing them here.
We got to talk about this. Brian Pillman Jr. has been in NXT for a bit now. They've just started to introduce him with the vignettes talking about his background and how his father wasn't there. They've introduced him now as Lexus King. I think the name sucks, but I know the reason behind it is I think Lexus was the name of his sister who passed away, and King is his not his biological father's last name, obviously, but his stepfather's last name or his other sister's last name, whatever it might be. So there's a reason why he has the name. Again, he can't be Brian Pillman Jr. if he's doing this gimmick where he doesn't want to be his father, which he already kind of tried in AEW and it didn't really work. I do think he has potential, though. We've talked about this. I think he's a great pickup for them. And I haven't seen any great promos from him in AEW, but I've loved these vignettes they've been putting out for him, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in his debut on Tuesday.
No, the vignettes have been great. I like the King, the Lexus. I don't know. I feel like it can go both ways.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's more of a girl name, but I mean, if whatever. I think it has meaning. So it's not the greatest name. At least there's something. It's not like some generic WWE name they gave him. At least there's some kind of, or there's some kind of reasoning. So, but no, I've liked what he's done so far. I mean, I feel like AEW dropped the ball with him, especially after the Dark Side of the Ring. Guy was could have been the most over babyface, and they did nothing with him. I think what we've seen of him, he's been pretty decent in the ring, so I'm interested to see what they do with him here.
I think an argument can be made in their defense that he may not have been ready for a big push back in 2021. I think they could have done more with him, though. They had that one match with MJF, and that was it.
No, I agree. I don't know. I feel like after the Dark Side, they could have capitalized on him and Griff. They did nothing with them. They just were
I agree.
I don't know if they weren't ready. I mean, I don't think they were ready either, but don't put them on TV then.
Well, no, I think they may not have been ready to be tag team champions, but I mean, they were over, and they were a pretty over team as the Varsity Blondes, and they just were a glorified jobber team. They never really got above a certain level. They were always just an enhancement team, so. But I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in NXT. We get to the main event, Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria for the NXT Women's Championship. It's Becky's busy week. She's defending against Indy Hartwell first on Raw, actually. Indy, who never lost the championship in the first place earlier this year. She's obviously now winning the belt back. And then Becky takes on Lyra on Tuesday's NXT. This should also be a great match. Again, I've loved it. They put together a video package promoting it last week on NXT. And I think we heard from Lyra this week about the match. So I think this will be a great match. And we also saw Jade close out NXT this week, tapping her wrist, kind of like, it's almost time before I arrive. I still think she's going to Raw, but maybe she makes her presence felt in this match next week. I'm looking forward to the match, though. Do you think Lyra Valkyria is the one to take the title from Becky? Because I feel like it might be too soon to be taking the belt off of Becky, because she's had a great run so far.
I can't with you. Always the hard ones make me go first every time. If you asked me last week, I would say Becky, but I just have like a gut feeling Lyra's going to win here. Like I said, maybe like the Jade time thing, maybe she gets involved, and that's like we get her and Becky off the rip on Raw. My gut says Lyra. I don't want, like you said, I feel like Becky's had a good run, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like I like what she's doing, but I think it'll just help putting Lyra over. And like I said, then you get Jade on the main roster. I'm going to go with Lyra. I'm like 60-40 on it, but I like Becky. I like Lyra a lot. I think the win could do a lot for her. So I'm going to go with Lyra.
Okay. Lyra Valkyria, new NXT Women's Champion, according to Mr. Marceau. Looking forward to that next week. Last thing for you, Mr. Marceau.
You're not going to... What are you? What do you mean?
Oh, how did I not give my prediction? I mean, I have no idea.
I thought the kid was going to scapegoat right out of it. Like, like everything else going on, guys. Like, the kid was just supposed to move on and just let me, like... look like an idiot.
And then not give my prediction. So then if Lyra wins next week, I could say, well, yeah, I had her winning. Or if Becky wins, I could say, yeah, I had her winning too. I just didn't say it.
Wow, kid trying to escape right out of it.
I honestly, I thought I already gave my prediction, but I forgot I had you go on first because that's just what we do here. I'm going to go Becky Lynch. I think Becky Lynch retains. I mean, Lyra winning would be awesome. I think she, she's come a long way. She's always been very good in the ring. The character stuff is kind of where she struggled. And I still feel like she needs some more work in that department and connecting with the audience. But she's very good, and, it would be pretty cool if Becky passed the torch to her by having her be the one to beat her for the NXT Women's Championship. I think there's more they're going to do. I said months ago, or not a month ago, but I said a month ago, we could see a Becky Jade Cargill situation for the NXT Women's title, and they teased that on Monday's Raw backstage. They also teased Jade and Charlotte. Doesn't mean we're going to get it right away. But, something to keep in mind. I could see Jade maybe not appearing in front of the audience because they haven't done that yet. They may want to save that for like when she shows up on Raw. We've only seen backstage stuff so far, but I wouldn't be opposed to it. So I think Becky Lynch walks out NXT Women's Champion, but Mr. Marceau's got Valkyria, so we'll talk about it next week here on the show. But I do got one last question for you, not question, but just a talking point. Last night on Dynamite, which I thought was a fine show overall, the biggest eventful aspect of the episode. Sting announcing that he's wrapping up his in-ring run at AEW and just in general, because he said during his first retirement speech in 2016 that the only thing for sure about Sting is that nothing's for sure, is famous catchphrase. But he said this is for sure. He's wrestling his final match, period, not just for AEW, at Revolution 2024, the same show where he debuted at 3 years ago in that tag team match, that cinematic match with Darby Allin against Team Taz. So that's about 5 months. We kind of had a feeling they'd be wrapping up soon. He signed, I think, a 3-year deal in December of 2020. And I thought he might wrap up at Winter is Coming, but, they should save it for a big pay-per-view, and Full Gear is too soon. So they're saving it for... I mean, there might be more pay-per-views before then, too. I'm just assuming there's Full Gear and Revolution. There's bound to be more because there's rumored to be more. But he will be wrestling his final match, according to Sting, at the Revolution show in March, I think it is. Next March. That's about 4.5 months from now. Your thoughts on the Sting announcement and what you could see his final match being in AEW, whether it be his first singles match in the company or just another standard tag team match or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I would say just do him and Darby, do his last match, put Darby over. Because, that's who he's been aligned with the whole time. I don't know if you theoretically have to turn either of them heel or vice versa. But, no, I think that would make the most sense. Another tag team match. I would be kind of against that, but I think theoretically I would say him versus Darby. I
don't know what the next 5 months are going to look like. We could see him do a lot. We could see him do this in the next 5 months, but I was thinking, what about the possibility of him and Darby? If they're not going to do any Sting singles matches, which they haven't done at all, if they're going to do one, they should be saving it for his last match, and he puts over Darby like you said. I think that'd be cool. Darby can say that he beat Sting or retired Sting, whatever. But what instead, if they want to do another tag team match, what if him and Darby finally win the tag team titles? The fact that we talk about, this company talks about, wins and losses matter. If wins and losses matter, dude, Sting has won literally every single match he's had in this company. He has not lost a single match in he lost every match that he had in WWE for the most part. He's won every match that he's had in AEW. but he has yet to get a tag team title shot. So if they can win the belts and then just, vacate them that same night or the next day or Dynamite or whatever, then that'd be fine. But I feel like it'd be cool for him to go off on a high note by winning the belts, at least having these wins amount to something, because so far they have not. And he's active enough to where it's not like he's wrestling once a year. I mean, we have a title in WWE that's on Roman Reigns, who wrestles 3 times a year. I don't think it'd be too out of the question for Sting to win a tag team title after wrestling, every couple weeks, every couple months, and then he can vacate it that same night.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm kind of out on that. I mean, why would you win the belts with I don't know. I just feel like
Trish Stratus.
The belts to just vacate them. I guess they're on fucking.
We've seen it before.
Big Bill at this point, so it does not totally matter. But I don't know.
We've seen
love the idea, but I mean,
Trish Stratus did it.
What do you mean?
Trish Stratus did it back in 2006. She said she was retiring, but she won the women's title that same night anyway.
Yeah, and it was dumb then too. The women's division also meant nothing. I mean, the AEW tag team division at this point means nothing anyways, but honestly, and now that I think about it, honestly, just have them win and just drop the belts. Why not?
Well, they wouldn't be dropping them. They would just vacate them.
Drop the belts.
Well, they're not going to...
This is dumb to win the belts with a vacate. Like I said, at least like in 2006, the women's division meant nothing. I mean, we had Cherry skating around on fucking rollerblades, so... I'm kind of out on that idea.
It would just add more stakes, because it's not like, if Sting loses, he's gone. We already know he's gone, so it's not even like there's any real drama there. The only other match, I'm just saying, I would only want that if he's not facing Darby one-on-one. If it's just a Sting regular match, I mean, it's special because it is his last match, but there doesn't have to be stakes. It's stakes in the sense that he is wrestling his final match, but I would like, but I say what I said before was anything can change in the next 5 months. He could win the belts next month. I mean, Ricky Starks and Big Bill are champions right now. Is that going to last? I don't think so. They're not a real team. It's just they're not random, but I don't know. I think Ricky and Big Bill, maybe part of the reason why they won the belts was because they have that in mind, and the idea is to do Darby and Sting against them at some point, if not at that show, which is, again, 4 months from now. I don't know. Just something to keep in mind. I would prefer, though, your idea, where he just puts over Darby one-on-one. I know Darby said he doesn't want to do that, though. I don't know what the reason is. Just because he doesn't want to do it doesn't mean it won't happen. I mean, just get over it. But same thing with Sting. I think he's capable enough. He's shown at this point where he can do a singles match if he wanted to. But again, time will tell. But we'll talk more about it next week. Hopefully, we have more AEW news to discuss, along with whatever happens on Raw and SmackDown. The season premieres are in the rear view. We head on into Crown Jewel coming up. Is it next? I think it's next weekend. No, is it? No, it's not. I'm sorry. It's in 2 weeks. I'm thinking that if it's next weekend, it's coming up quick. But we got Crown Jewel coming up, and then Survivor Series soon after that. Royal Rumble Full Gear and everything else in the rear view or upcoming shows and whatnot.
Fastlane, rear view. What else in the roadblock?
God,
Kid's dying. You like that
one? Yeah, listen. They have so many shows. It's hard to keep track. Halloween Havoc. I forgot to mention that. We'll talk about that next week. There's never not any shows going on. Hey, listen, it's a great time to be talking about wrestling because it's all great stuff. I can't complain. New episodes every single week on WrestleRant.com, WrestleRantRadio.com, iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Amazon Music, and Pandora. Rate the show, review the show, subscribe to the show. Never miss a new episode every single week. Mr. Marceau, brother, pleasure chatting with you as always. I'll catch up with you next week, brother.
All right, sounds good, man.
Adios.
Join Graham, GSM Matthews, and RJ Marceau every Thursday as they run down their weekly wrestling rants, offer expert analysis, host exclusive interviews, and more. Subscribe today on all your favorite podcast platforms and never miss an episode of WrestleRant Radio.